Hello and welcome to this SPK and Associates webinar entitled Creating a Digital Thread Without Changing Your Tools. My name is Michael Roberts. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here for SPK and Associates, and we have a great webinar for you today. As a reminder for those that are joining us for the first time, we do mute your sound, so you won't be able to speak, but we do encourage interaction and in the chat and in the question and answer section. So please make sure that you have your questions ready as we progress through this webinar. We will have folks staffing and reviewing questions in the chat and also in the Q&A. We'll also try to maybe answer some of those as we go along in this webinar and in this hour. But we'll also have a question and answer section at the end of our webinar to try to answer your questions. So we want to start here talking about what most organizations are seeing, and they're operating with a very diverse set of tools across engineering, quality, product management, operations, manufacturing, and more. And each of these tools obviously serves a purpose. However, the challenge really arises when those systems don't communicate effectively to each other. Data often becomes fragmented. Teams rely on manual updates or workarounds, which unfortunately I've seen way too often. And that becomes increasingly difficult to establish that whole end-to-end traceability across that product lifecycle. This not only slows down decision making, but it also introduces inconsistencies in reporting. We've all probably seen that before, and reduces the confidence in the data that's being used for those reports. So for companies in regulated industries, those challenges are even more critical. You have to demonstrate compliance, and in the process of doing so, it really requires a clear, auditable traceability. But those disconnected systems really make that difficult and time consuming. Audits are probably the worst time for people in regulated industries because gathering all that information takes forever. And at the same time, those organizations are under an immense amount of pressure to improve visibility and collaboration without disrupting the tools and the workflows that they rely on every day to produce their product. And that's the core challenge we're addressing today in today's webinar is how to bridge those gaps, how to create alignment, visibility, and traceability across those systems without forcing a complete overhaul to your existing tool chain. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's webinar. And I'm joined by two very smart individuals, and I'm going to let them do most of the heavy lifting in this webinar. So we'll introduce Aparna and Daniela. Aparna, if you'd like to introduce yourself, feel free.
Hi, thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Aparna. I'm working as Director of Product and Marketing at OpsHub. And at OpsHub, we specialize in driving digital transformation, like incrementally, non-disruptive way, agile using the Hub framework. This webinar will focus on federated digital thread and how we can help you build digital thread without changing the tools you already have in production. Daniel?
Thank you, Aparna. I'm Daniela, and I have been with SPK for going on 9 years in the space of CAD and PLM, essentially taking some tools that can seem very complex and making them work just right for our customers and their unique needs. And happy to be here with you all and discuss digital thread.
And I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing here for SPK. I've been here 5 years, but been working in the software and infrastructure space for 30 years now. So hopefully these two have a lot of information to share. And here's generally what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about that digital thread problem that I was describing about having all your tools be able to work together and kind of the traceability issues and thus the auditability issues that happen with that. And then we'll talk about what a digital thread really means and what that really looks like, and then how you can have a digital thread without replacing those tools. We do have some real world examples and outcomes that they got. And we'll also give you kind of a tidbit on how to actually start today. If you wanted to start doing these things today and have a digital thread, what ways you could do that. And then, as I mentioned, we definitely will have a question and answer section at the end of our webinar where you can ask whatever questions you have. Again, you can throw them in the chat now or in the Q&A now. We absolutely welcome that, but we will have a session for you. Okay, so Aparna, I'm going to start with you. So can you start us off by giving the audience a little bit about the anti-pattern that we see, what that looks like, and then ultimately we'll build off of that foundation.
Yeah, yeah, Michael. So the reality of today's engineering tool chain. If you look at your environment, it probably something look like there are different teams, different tools, different data. Each team is doing their job, but connections between them are weak or manual. They are talking to each other over email, Slack, team channel. So the data is everywhere, but not the end systems. That's where it leads to three problems: fragmented data, siloed systems, and misaligned teams. So even though work is happening, but it's disconnected. Uh, Going to the next slide. So now let's look at what is the real impact of this disconnect. It's not just the disconnected teams. This disconnect first up to like 70% of enterprise data goes unused, not because it is not valuable, but because it is stuck in silos. Whatever question you are asking for, the data is there in the systems itself, but you're just not able to reach to it on time. Second is engineers spend 20 to 40% of their time on non-valuable work. Uh, Things like manual updates, switching tools, reconciling data. And not just this, because of the defects, they spend work on, they do rework because of some gap, miscommunication in the requirement got updated, testers were not aware, QA team was not aware about it, development was still working on the previous version of the requirement specification. Things like those. And the third is organization with poor traceability. They are likely to 2 to 3 times more likely to face compliance or audit issues. So this isn't just an efficiency problem, it directly affects productivity, cost, and risks. Going to the next slide. So, when organizations, what do they do when they see this problem? The natural reaction is to rip and replace all the tools. Let's get new tools, or let's move to one platform. Just change everything. No, these approaches are risky, expensive, and highly disruptive. People and process you can still change over time slowly. Changing systems is like moving mammoth of data process from one tool to other tool. And doing it again because of one bad decision is just going through those risk and expenses again and again. So, these changing systems, it slows down their teams instead of helping them move faster. So while this feels like the right solution, it often creates more problems than it solves. Next slide. Yeah. So what is a better approach? So instead of trying to replace everything, there is a simpler and more practical approach. SPK and OpsHub, we have been able to come together from our a decade experience of more than a decade. The first thing is start by connecting existing tools. Then make sure that between these tools, between your existing tools, data flows automatically so that your users don't need to relearn anything. The tools is working for them. The digital thread is working for them. Third is focus on interoperability, because you're likely to have tools from different vendors who talk different language. So the systems need to work together, not in isolation. And at the same time, ensure every team gets value from this, not just one group. If only a product team is getting value out of it, then it won't drive adoption, because verification team is not getting value out of it and product team is not able to see the whole thread from their tool. And finally, always keep compliance in mind. So this way, teams improve what they already have and without disrupting teams.
Thanks, Aparna. So, and this is really, and you summarized a lot of strife that we've worked through with clients in like 7 bullets. There's a lot to unpack there, which is kind of what we're going to do in the rest of this webinar is talk about how to achieve that, right? So now we've got the understanding of the problems that are there and the right way forward. I want to switch a little bit to Daniela now. So Daniela, can you help the audience understand now what a digital thread is and the value of having those interconnected tools?
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, a digital thread isn't really one tool, it's more of a capability. So it connects data across the entire product lifecycle from requirements all the way through design, development, testing, and production. So the goal is pretty simple here to make sure that information flows seamlessly between systems so teams can make decisions based on complete, accurate data. What we often see is that there is no one source of truth, that every team has their source of truth, and trying to parse them together takes time and it takes effort. With digital thread, this is an interconnected flow of data that follows the product and really gives you access to everything you need from design, manufacturing, service, and even retirement. What that really means in practice is breaking down silos, streamlining workflows, and enabling systems and teams to work together more effectively. It's not a my ERP says this, my PLM says that. Now we're working within one thread. Everybody can see the information. Uh, Along those lines, it also helps ensure quality, consistency, and traceability. I know we mentioned, audits. So the data you're working with is not only accurate, but it's up to date and actionable. Just as importantly, it ensures that data gets delivered to the right people at the right time when it's needed, and in the right context across the value chain. So you have all the information you need. You're not looking at one snapshot. All right, and let's move on to what does this deliver now from a business perspective? I just kind of broke down the digital thread and how it's not one tool, but what are some of the results we can see? Well, a well-implemented digital thread drives very tangible value. It supports compliance by enabling that full traceability, helps accelerate development by reducing rework, and improves decision making through better visibility into data. Now, this is a fun topic, digitization versus digital thread, right? They're both very similar, but there is an important distinction here. A lot of organizations feel like they're making progress because they've digitized their data, but that doesn't necessarily create value. On the left, you can see what that looks like. So this is often converting paper or analog information into digital files, which is a great first step. But it often still leaves you in a siloed environment with static data that can lack context. It may be stored, but it's not truly usable. Now, a digital thread takes it a step further. It connects the same data across the entire product lifecycle, linking things like design decisions, BOMs, test results, and even service records into a living, evolving system. That structure and governance is what really enables that traceability, better visibility, and ultimately smarter decision making across teams. So the shift here isn't just from analog to digital, it's disconnected data to connected insights into your data. Now, of course, I just spoke great things about digital thread and versus digitation, but how does this get implemented? So this isn't always straightforward. When organizations try to implement a digital thread, the biggest challenges they face aren't necessarily technical, but it's more operational and cultural. First, adoption can suffer when new tools or workflows may slow teams down instead of helping them. That naturally creates some resistance. I see this all the time, actually, of there's a new tool, but hey, I've used this tool for the past 10, 20 years. That is common. Second, data quality becomes a major issue when information is passed down manually, delayed, or inconsistent, which ultimately erodes trust in the system. Now, third, even after significant investment, many organizations struggle to see real value because their data may still be fragmented, traceability may be incomplete, and insights are limited. So the key takeaway here is that a digital thread delivers value when it's easy to use, built on reliable data, and truly connects systems in a way that drives actionable insight. Now, this is something Aparna also hinted at, best of breed versus single platform. This is a common dilemma when organizations are looking at their tool strategy. It often feels like you have to choose between two extremes. On one side, you have best of breed tools, solutions like Arena, Teamcenter, Jama. These platforms are purpose-built to solve specific problems well. They help teams move faster and innovate more effectively and work in ways that are very much tailored to their domain. But the challenge is when these tools are not connected, you end up with silos, fragmented data, limited visibility. Maybe some teams have access while others do not, and difficulty collaborating due to that limited access. On the other side, some organizations look to standardize on single platforms to solve these issues. And while that can improve governance and centralize visibility, it often comes at a cost of flexibility and capability. No single platform is truly the best at everything, and forcing everything into one system can slow teams down. What we've seen work best is not choosing one over the other, but it's enabling both via a digital thread. By connecting best-of-breed tools and synchronizing data across them, organizations can preserve the strengths of each system while still achieving the unified visibility and traceability needed to work effectively across the entire product lifecycle.
Thanks, Daniela. I love the structure component of that, of not having to make a decision, because I literally was having dinner with a client last night, and that's exactly what they said. They said, "Do I do this, which is pick the best of breed tools, or do I do this other strategy, which is go to one platform?" And that is a common decision point, right? So I love the visual there. Now I want to add some context around the goal of accomplishing that digital thread, and the benefits of tying engineering tools together and what value you get out of that. But the harder question here to answer is, how do we get there from here where we're at today? And so, Aparna, can you share a little bit more around how organizations can obtain that full digital thread approach without picking either of the sides that Daniela was talking about?
Yeah. So Daniela, Michael, I think very best of the breed tools is also, there is no tool that provides state of the art functionalities and solution for each team. A tool may be good at one thing, but it's very, very difficult to do good at support, to good at verification, to good at requirements, to good at design. That's like getting all the right things together in one tool. And if whenever orgs go for everything in one tool, the teams compromise on the modern functionalities, because it's just not possible to have or too difficult to have all the modules provide best of the breed solution. So having said that moving to one tool is practically not possible. So the best place to start with is what you already have, what teams already have. The teams don't need new tools. Just take the inventory of the tools in the ecosystem, in your existing ecosystem. Understand how the data flows between these tools today. And finally, identify the dependencies and gaps. Once you have built this visibility, which tools you have, how the teams using those tools are talking to each other, it becomes much more easier to connect the systems in a meaningful way. The next step, once team or org has identified which all tools are related and which teams need to sync or talk to each other, the next step is to focus on what really matters, the data relationships. So not all data needs to be connected to everything. We don't need to create a star network over here. start with critical links, for example, requirement to design or design to testing. And when you connect them, it's important that the data flows both ways, not one way, not view only. The data flows both ways in real time so that both the teams are seeing the data they need in real time and the latest state. That's what ensures consistency across systems and avoid manual updates, because there's no point of creating digital thread if teams are not using it. When will teams use it? If they see value in it. When will they see value in it? When they don't need to take any additional step. They're just working as usual and they are getting the right data in their tool. So you just don't ask, they should not be required to go through a training program to be able to, for the digital thread to work successfully. It should not depend on your 10,000 employees. Digital thread should depend on just one software. So since, now once the relationships are identified, the next step is synchronization itself. So data needs to move automatically, as we discussed in the previous slide, not just one. It needs to happen in real time, so everyone is working with the latest information. This is especially important for areas like testing, quality, where delays or mismatches can cause real issues, because maybe the quality was done on latest -1 version of requirement specification. And the goal is to keep data consistent without manual effort. So now it's not just about moving the data, it's also about maintaining the context. It's not just I see a requirement in one tool and I see same requirement in other tool. The question is, everything that a user is seeing in that requirement in one tool, is it visible to the other user in other tool as well? So if I'm seeing here 5 comments, there are embedded images, there are relationships. Does my other user in the other system also is seeing the same thing? Because if they're not seeing the same thing, they will be taking the decision on basis of incomplete information, which is actually costlier than having, it is costlier than not having a digital thread. Because not having a digital thread, the information is not there and you will talk to the other person. But having an incomplete digital thread, you will rely on that incomplete information thinking it is complete. So it's actually more costly. This is one very important aspect of the digital thread. Finally, all this leads to a single source of truth. And I would like to clarify one thing over here. A single source of truth is often, there is often that myth that single source of truth means all the data needs to be there in single system. It doesn't mean putting everything into one system. Single source of truth means having consistent, reliable data across all systems. So no matter where you are, what info you are looking at, the same information. If you are in requirements tool, you are in verification tool. If you're looking at a verification report, you are looking at the same data irrespective of which tool you are in. So this enables unified reporting, better visibility, and more confident decision making. Now we'll move on to a small demo. We have pre-recorded this demo, but I'll basically go through that demo live. So in this demo, we are integrating ARIS, which is PLM tool. We'll take one MBSE tool, and for this demo purpose, we are taking Enterprise Architect, and we'll be taking Jira. So these 3 tools will talk to each other, and you'll see in the demo how they are talking to each other bidirectionally. To see the demo later, at your own convenient time, you can also scan this QR code, and we'll share the URL. So Michael,
I'll give you control if you want to go ahead and share.
Yes. Okay. Give me a minute, I'm sharing. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yep, that's coming.
Okay,
There we go.
so I'm
Yep.
starting the video. Yeah, Michael, you can see it, right?
Yep. Good to go.
Okay, I'll just go back and start again. Okay. So this is ARIS. ARIS, we will be integrating block requirements and diagrams. So as we can see right now, there are no block requirements. Similarly, in Jira, there are no requirements, no tasks. And similarly, Enterprise Architect, it's blank. So we'll go to ARIS, and this is ARIS user creating a new block requirement. And they are creating the requirement. They don't know if there is a digital thread in the background in play or what is happening. They are just using ARIS the way they were using before digital thread came into play. So they have created one block requirement. Now they are adding another block. And again, as you can see, they're just filling the fields and moving normally. No change in their day-to-day life. So in background, now the digital thread engine is running, and it will detect that these requirements are added, and it will go to EA and add those requirements. So this is Enterprise Architect. Right now, there are no requirements. And again, this is just a normal Enterprise Architect user using the UI normally. So I will refresh, and both those block requirements are available here. So again, as a user, I didn't do any additional step. I just refreshed the normal EA window, and it showed me the newly created requirements there. So here I'm now creating a diagram, and in this diagram, we will add the two block requirements that we just had added in ARIS. This is what it's a very complicated system we are trying to build over here. And the diagram is for that highly super complicated system. So this is Jira. Both the block requirements are integrated here as well. And now, yes, so here we can see like the status, priority. So all the values that are visible, it will depend on the mapping, and the system we have supports all the fields. So now the diagram is there in ARIS, the diagram that we created in EA, and it also is pointing to the EA ID. So the EA ID that user sees here, it is also available in ARIS. So if you want to search directly, you can search from the ID. And in this diagram over here, we can see the regular fields title. But one interesting thing is in description, the diagram snapshot is there. So what user is seeing in EA, they are seeing it over here. And plus it is linked to both the block requirements. So again, all this, it's a recorded demo just to save time. But it is just how the users are using system, Jira, MBSE, PLM tool. It is showcasing that they are not installing any other diagram, any other plugin, or they are not doing any change in their end systems. So that completes the demo.
Gotcha.
And Michael, back to you.
I love it, Aparna, and that is a perfect example of three different people working together without ever talking to one another, but seeing the
Yeah.
fruits and values of each other's work, right? Like that's ultimately the digital thread, right? Having all that data at your feet. And I love the fact that you can also go back if you want to go back and review that or share that with somebody else. There's a QR code to be able to do that. So thank you for that. So last, I want to turn to, or next to last, I guess, I want to turn a little bit to some real world outcomes and real world use cases where we've done this exact type of thing. So Daniela, can you share a little bit more about a few clients that we've worked on and how we've helped them create a digital thread?
Sure, Michael, happy to. All right, so this was ADO and Codebeamer. This was an example using an OIM integration that we implemented for a client a few years ago. Now, what makes this stand out is they didn't try to replace their tools, as we've all talked about earlier. They focused on connecting them. So the challenges here were a siloed ALM and DevOps system, Codebeamer, versus Azure DevOps, and no unified view of development progress or traceability. There's some complex mapping and also risk of data inconsistency because it was unclear who owned which system, as well as difficulty detecting and syncing relationships or linking changes. As you can see, they were using Codebeamer for requirements and testing and Azure DevOps for engineering execution, but these two systems were completely siloed, completely separate. That led to those challenges. So they needed tighter control over what data moved between those systems rather than pushing everything back and forth. OpsHub was really key here, as OpsHub enabled the client to create a rule-driven digital thread that connected both systems without disrupting existing workflows. So OpsHub Integration Manager, along with our team here at SPK, worked with the client to achieve that. They enabled bidirectional, and this is huge as somebody who talks to clients who want to connect systems all the time. Very often you see, yes, you can push info from one system to the other, but it's one direction. This is actually a bidirectional sync where it made sense and established clear data ownership while preserving those key relationships. The result was a connected environment with no manual reconciliation, and we've all at some point have had to access one tool, check it, enter the same information elsewhere, really getting rid of that while keeping complete traceability and no disruption to ongoing work. In Aparna's demo, I love that you can see engineers are using these tools as they normally would. There's no plugin, there's no extras, they don't detect any changes. It's a great example of achieving a digital thread through smart integration rather than large-scale tool changes. And Aparna, I'll hand it over to you for the next case study.
Thanks, Daniela. So this is another example, like real-world example of a customer. This customer had multiple tools, Qtest, which was used for testing, Jira for development, and Jama for product management, all working separately. And the main challenge was pretty common, lack of traceability, disconnected systems, and there was no real-time visibility. The product team in Jama would rely on word of mouth or trust that if it's tested properly. But when it comes to taking out the report, it will take weeks to create one simple audit report. So it's sort of somewhere the confidence was missing in the system. So when we spoke to this customer after 6 months after the deployment, we asked them, okay, what changed? So they said, we are now more confident that what we are delivering will work as expected. It gives us more confidence that we are, there. So by connecting these tools with bidirectional digital thread, they were able to create a seamless flow of data. In Jama, they will see the whole report of what is the coverage of each requirement, what all changes were done for a given requirement, who did it, when was it done, the whole traceability, and just one click. In Qtest, they were able to see what were all the requirement specifications shared, how the test cases evolved, which test was done for which requirement, if they can reuse the test across the requirements, all those analytics was possible. And this actually integration enabled them to use the native functionalities in these tools. Let's say if most of the tools now support AI. Now imagine if your tool now has requirements verification, so the prompt and the training data, that becomes much more useful and much more vast. So it gave them better visibility, reduced manual work, and helped them to better utilize the tool native functionalities.
Daniela, back over to you.
Thanks, Michael. So one of the biggest benefits now that we've talked about digital thread and covered some use cases as well as a demo is what does it enable? One of the biggest benefits is decision making. Now, with that connected data, teams aren't waiting on reports or reconciling conflicting information. I know we've all had one platform that says one thing and another that conflicts that directly at least once, right? You have real-time insights that you can trust, as Aparna mentioned in the previous slide there, that allows companies to act quicker. Now, whether it's prioritizing work, managing risks, or making day-to-day team decisions. At the same time, this level of connectivity improves quality and cost. Earlier visibility into issues means faster detection, less rework, and a lower cost of quality. Teams can manage quality proactively instead of reacting later in the process. This is especially valuable in regulated environments. With built-in traceability and audit trails, audits become far more straightforward, more of a validation exercise than a scramble. And finally, it strengthens collaboration. So when systems are connected, teams share a clear view of how their work fits together. That reduces handoffs. As we saw in that demo, you don't necessarily need to meet and chat about the changes that were made, minimizes miscommunication, and keeps everyone aligned. Ultimately, it's this combination of real-time visibility, alignment, and trust in the data that helps organizations move faster and operate with much greater confidence than before.
All right. Thanks, Daniela. So I want to take now, we've talked about the steps and the things that are involved without getting hyper technical, although we did have a good demo to show actual real world usage. So now I want to talk about what are the things that people could start doing today? What can they take away from this webinar and implement, immediately? So I think the good news is this is a solvable situation, but the bad news is some people may go, oh, I got to get a million people involved and get everybody on board and do all these things. So Aparna, can you give us a little bit of what's step one? What's the baby step to get started here?
Yeah, sure, Michael. I think Daniela covered one very good point, not to underestimate digital thread. Often digital thread is underestimated. What is in it? Just you take the data from one system, keep it in the other system. That's the biggest mistake most of the teams do. Keeping two systems in sync is not easy. There are downtimes, there are failures, in-flight transaction failures. How do you recover? Completeness of the data. But in addition to that, there are just few more recommendations that we have seen across customers. And these are the few best practices that really stand out. So the first one is connect data end to end. So you have full traceability across the life cycle. So if let's say you have connected requirement to design and then dev to test is connected, but in between design to dev or design to tests are not connected, that won't be useful. So you start with one connecting maybe design to requirement, but then don't break the thread there. Continue the life cycle till the time all the stages are not connected. Second is minimize disruptions. So let team continue using their tools and process, just like how we saw in the demo. For Aras, EA, and Jira to work together, teams didn't have to change how they save an issue or what data they are able to save in that data. They were just working before they were working just like they were working before the digital thread was there. Third, automate everything. Manual steps don't scale. So don't keep it like the basic text fields will sync via integration and attachments will be shared via emails. Automate everything, not just few things. Also enable teams to collaborate from their own tools. So no need for emails or switching systems. Make sure digital thread spans across all domains, PLM, ALM, QA, everything. And finally, plan for change. Because tools, data models, business needs will keep evolving. So the idea is to build something that works today and adapts for tomorrow. As systems come up with new versions, their contract, the API contract will change. What data you want to sort of connect, that will change, that will keep evolving. Today it was agile, then Scrum, then DevOps, new frameworks keep coming. So build the system such that it can adapt to future needs easily without having to redo it from scratch.
I love it, Aparna.
Now let's talk how SPK and OpsHub, we actually make it happen. So it starts with strategy. I think, Daniela, you also covered in your slide, like understanding the current setup, what tools they use, identifying gaps, and defining what the digital thread should look like. The second is implementation, this is where the systems are connected. So data starts flowing in real time and workflows are automated. And finally, optimization, continuously improving data quality, expanding use cases, using an analytics or AI, like what I mentioned during the demo. Just the availability of complete data enables teams to use native tool functionalities better. So they are able to drive better decisions. So it's not just a one-time setup, it's an ongoing journey of improvement. So you keep strategizing, execute it, again, review it, retrospect it, and keep getting better. Michael?
Thank you, man. You're amazing, Aparna. Thank you for all that. I do want to get to our Q&A session here. We do have a few minutes to get to that. So let me run through a couple of these slides to get there. Again, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure we get to them here in just a second. So if this is your first SPK and Associates webinar, welcome and thank you for being here. If you're not familiar with us, we're 22 technically, I guess. This is our birthday month, so we're 23 years old now. We're a woman-owned business based in the Bay Area of California, but we do have folks spread out the US and Canada, and even a couple folks internationally as well. And we work with a lot of different technology partners. I'll talk about that here in a second. Which one is our awesome friends at OpsHub, including Aparna. So Aparna, you want to share a little bit more about OpsHub?
Yeah. So at the core of OpsHub, it's a data federation platform. We connect existing systems without moving or disrupting the data. So at OpsHub, we bring data together from different tools and turn it into a connected usable layer. We have this, OpsHub has this hub framework or hub model that we call. So hub stands for harmonizing systems and upgrading legacy models. And then the B stands for boosting intelligence. So that is how to bring the systems together, people together, processes together. This not only helps with visibility and traceability, but also makes the data ready for analytics and AI for next level of innovation. And importantly, all of this happens without forcing teams to change their tools or workflows. I won't just repeating myself again, just how we saw in the demo. There was no change to team workflows or team daily habits. They were just using the tools like before. So you get the benefits of digital thread without minus disruption.
And I love that hub stands for something. I love that. That's great. And that is part of the reason why we partnered with OpsHub years ago, was because we saw the value in, connecting those systems, and there was definitely alignment to the things that we were trying to do. We were trying to help customers get their products to market more quickly, which our ACEs talk about, get it to market more quickly, help reduce cost, help ensure compliance, which I think this type of approach goes a long way, and then ultimately help our customers produce an exceptionally quality product. So the alignment there from a partnership perspective with OpsHub is huge for us. It's absolutely the things that we're ultimately trying to do and ultimately trying to achieve with our clients and our joint clients too. So again, Aparna, Daniela, thank you so much for your time and feedback today. I think we already have a couple questions
Was in
in the
the
chat,
in the
so I'm going to run into those. Um, let's see. Aparna, let's start with you. Can you integrate if one tool is on cloud and another one is on premise? Good question.
Yeah, definitely. Um, the way the way OpsHub is modeled, it is like you can easily connect cloud with on-premise because it doesn't need plugins, so you also don't have to open the firewall. So what you do in this case is deploy OpsHub in your on-premise environment and connect it to the on-premise system and to the cloud system from there.
Gotcha.
And the communication is all one way. So end system will never talk to OpsHub. It will be always OpsHub initiating communication to the tool.
Gotcha. Daniela, we'll throw this one at you. If we already have most of our data digitized, how do we know whether we truly have a digital thread versus just connected silos?
That's
Where's
a
the
great
finish line? Where's the finish line?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because a lot of organizations are in that exact position. Digitization means your data does exist in digital form, but digital thread means that that data is connected, contextualized, and traceable across the life cycle. So a simple test may be, can you trace a requirement all the way through design, development, testing, and into production or service without manual effort, without tracing back and opening all these different applications. And maybe there's wrong information, maybe there's, a mismatch, and that means there's some disconnection there. And if the answer is no, you likely have silos. Now, maybe there are some tools that may be connected, but as Aparna mentioned, you want to have that seamless connection across your tool set, across the whole life cycle. So a true digital thread makes that flow seamless and reliable. And by all means, if you have questions, reach out to us. We will help get you there.
Gotcha. Another good one here. I like this one. Aparna, I'll throw this to you because this is I think definitely an Ops Hub related approach here. So in reality, every system claims to be a single source of truth for something. How do you decide which system actually wins when there's an overlap or a conflict?
Okay. Okay. So, so I think if I get the question right, it is when we say single source of truth, how do we decide which system is the source of truth, and so that there's no overlap and
Yeah,
conflict?
so what if there's a conflict between those two systems in the process of syncing that data?
What single source of truth mean is not that all the data is there in one system only, but when it comes to picking, so for each type of data, there will be one system of truth. For example, for verification, it is Q-test. For software development, it is Jira. For PLM, it is ARIS or it is PTC. The data will be there in other systems, but the state that is there in the key system that owns that function, that will be the winner. They need to decide. That is what single source of truth means. So whatever, wherever, whichever system you're looking at, you're seeing the same data in every system. You're seeing the same information. But in case of conflict, the system that is used, the function that is using that for system, for example,
Right.
product goes to PTC, that system wins.
Gotcha. Yeah, and because that's where the people are that are actually working on that thing are working day to day, right? Like chances are
Yes.
that's the right answer. I like that.
Yes, yes. Jira cannot be the primary decision maker when it comes to verification. Whatever there is in the
Exactly.
verification tool, that will take precedence over
Exactly.
other systems.
Exactly. Exactly. I got another one here, Daniela. It is important to understand beyond whatever is written in the specification. Understanding the system and then planning for the test is important. My question is, what are people doing to go beyond specification from quality perspective to make sure they are able to verify the design in lesser time and with continuously reducing budget?
That's a great point, and something that digital thread can really shine with. Testing purely against the spec is no longer enough as systems become more and more complex, and often budgets are cut back at the same time. Where we're seeing organizations do a shift from spec-based testing to system-aware testing. And what I mean by that is instead of trying to test everything equally, the focus is on understanding how the system actually behaves, how components interact, where the dependencies can exist, and where failures would have the biggest impact. And a few key ways to get here, digital thread for end-to-end traceability. So when you connect requirements, design, development, and test data, you can immediately see what potentially is impacted by a change and test only what matters rather than retesting everything. And having that digital thread connection enables you to see this so much easier. And also it allows you to look at test automation potentially in continuous testing. So rather than testing late in the cycle, testing may happen earlier and more frequently, often embedded into your workflow to catch those defects sooner when they're much cheaper to fix. Um, and again, you can also use real data and scenarios that you can now link using digital thread. So you will have ability to have notes, service notes, for example, so you can really have everything flow seamlessly and have all of the information in one place to help guide you when it comes to testing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. We do feel free to add any other questions you guys have in the chat. I'm just going off of the ones that we have so far. So Aparna, a lot of organizations already have integrations in place, but they still struggle with trust in the data. My question is, what are people doing differently to move from connected systems to actually trusting data?
So I think that is when you are looking at integrating or connecting two systems, go beyond just connecting them. Look at the depth of information that is being kept in sync between the two tools. And by depth of information, I mean, so let's say there is a title of the requirement, there is description, this is all basic information. Then what about comments? What about attached files? What about in attached files, there is another flavor. What about embedded images inside rich text field? If I'm seeing text, the in rich text field, I'm seeing text in the other image without the inline or embedded images, then it's incomplete information. And then users will be forced to continue sync, collaborate manually. There is relationship. So there is, look at the depth of data that is important to you. There are also nowadays mentions. Like if I have commented @Michael, any idea about it, but if in the other system I'm just seeing any idea about it, the mention is not there.
Yeah.
So then incomplete information cause more harm than no information.
Especially, you mentioned the embedded images in rich text fields. I literally can think of, I've seen people screenshot a test and
Yes.
put just the screenshot there and say, this is what I get when I test it. And if you don't have that in the other system, you don't know if that's a good screenshot or a bad screenshot. So
Yes.
yeah, contextual is really important. It's not just, oh, I mapped the fields, like it needs to actually work and have all the contextual data. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so unless anybody has any more, feel free to put them in. But I think we may be to the end of our webinar today. Yeah, I'm not seeing any more. So thank everybody for joining. Thank you for joining. And again, Daniela, Aparna, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you guys sharing your insights.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
If we don't have any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We will make sure that you get a recording of this webinar in your inbox, guaranteed in 10 business days, probably a lot sooner than that, but you'll have that then. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to either Aparna, Daniela, or myself. Our contact info is there, both LinkedIn and email, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future and seeing you again in a future SPK and Associates webinar. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.